Okay, so I decided to look through the hardbound code using a tool suggested to me from a Twitter user, the Undertale mod tool. Basically, it's a fan-made tool to decompile the binary data. It allows you to freely edit the variables, look at the assembly, look at the images, sounds, functions, and whatever else was packed into the binary. Now, critics would suggest that it's not useful, as if you had the source and any criticisms of the code should be disregarded, as you're getting the optimized output from the compiler, and that isn't the human code, as it lost all the nuance and context. First, it's really underselling how great of a tool this is, and it's framing it like you're looking at the raw assembly output and guessing the C output, which it's not. A lot of work has been put into this tool, and you can read the documentation into the specifics of what it's doing. I was skimming through the executable with Ghidra, and I found a lot of the same things that they fixed in the decompile. Empty chunks, be it functions, variables, or arrays, from the Ghidra output without any kind of organization or work. It's a mess with a lot of empty references, be it from it being populated from the binary data file, or functions not being used, and it being empty as a result. Also, you'd have to cross-reference both the executable decompile and the binary file to start getting a picture of what you're working with. All in all, I'd say the tool is rebuilding types and functions as faithfully as it gets. Second, can you really say it's an optimized result when there's so much empty references, duplicated functions, and empty functions? Ripping out all of the code functions without any of the empty ones, the total size is 7.55 megabytes. But many of that could have been trimmed down further by reusing functions or variables if the compiler actually optimizes. So even if the decompiler lost a lot of the context by not rebuilding inheritance, virtual function overloads, or generic types, is it really optimized if there is so much empty references and duplicated object scripts? I'll leave you with some wisdom from a personal favorite.
A little bit too enamored of. They see something shiny, and like they see something shiny and they just love it. You know what I mean? And some of these things are a little bit overrated. You have to keep yourself from being too attracted to the little shiny things.
Alright, code analysis. I'm not going to be negative about this. To be honest, I don't even know what the issue is with people nitpicking code organization. They get so fixated about state machines and enums that they overlook basic data structures or simple practices like minimizing the amount of syscalls or initializations of new memory on the stack or heap, and try to reuse that allocated spot by having a ring buffer or object pool, or something that overwrites old unused memory instead of zeroing out that memory, releasing it, and then realloc. Other bit, I consider myself an artist. I don't have any professional industry experience. I draw anime women gooner stuff. I picked up programming and made a few games using the Odin programming language and Unity. I didn't go to college or classes or had someone holding my hand. It was all self-taught. I am the unskilled laborer with zero education pushing shopping carts getting paid $12.50 while the QA is getting paid $10.50. Okay, so enough of that boring stuff. The code is boring. It's just switch cases and a huge ass array. It would be nitpicky and pedantic to criticize it. Like the switch cases, I'm not even going to complain that you should use enums instead of like integers or magic numbers. Using enums, you have to specify the type name to get the global namespace reference. Despite it having an index value, you can't just slam in the index number or the bit if you're using a bit flag enum or a union enum. So I get it. It's a lot of typing, and it feels like Jai, Odin, and maybe Zig, where the compiler automatically infers the enum type, and all you have to do is type out the named index value, but it's not. Another thing, I don't think anyone looked at the GameMaker documentation, because some of the criticism, people saying, oh, this code's hard to follow, you don't know what's happening, there's so much magic numbers, that's all GameMaker API. Pirate Software didn't make the function, it's just using GameMaker right out of the box. If that's shitty code, then GameMaker is shitty. But any quote-unquote dev wouldn't have the balls to fucking say, hey, GameMaker is a piece of shit fucking software. You shouldn't make games out of GameMaker. Alright, DRM. You could nitpick that he didn't write anything else himself and is just checking the Steam names from known compromised users and bricking progression. It is just GameMaker API using Steam DLLs and hooking up all the functions for you, well, all the callbacks for you, which is just functions. So if you're on the Steam Deck and the game is false flagging you that you have a pirated game, that's a GameMaker issue. It's not a pirate software issue. But I will criticize how it's implemented, using a random number generator to check on each NPC interaction. You could get lucky and get a seed that never triggers the anti-piracy measure and beat the game completely. From someone that's supposed to check any and all vulnerabilities, that is the most easiest and simplest one to consider, but it's not obvious if you never care to read about seeds, random number generators, or even think about the underlying implementations of hows and whys. And I'd voice my criticism more towards anyone else who has ever code reviewed Heartbound and they have never brought up this. I would not listen to any dev took the easiest approach of nitpicking like clean code practices or whatever soy BS. No, what I just said, that's some real shit problem solving coding. The American Software Testing Qualifications Board and the International Software Testing Qualifications Board. Oh jeez man, that's a mouthful. A lot of money just to get these qualifications. And okay, like, I get people romanticize education and getting skills, but just learn to program. Especially if QA isn't a foot in the door job with a path to becoming a developer or learning to program. There instead is this expectations of getting accessory qualifications. There's so much freely available resources you can look at that isn't just getting PDFs online. Like, if I had to recommend a book, it would be this. And even then, I didn't even fully read the book. I just glossed over it. Just learn to set up your environment. That means just use whatever text editor choice you're comfortable with or you like. Any SDKs, packages, compilers, or frameworks, game engines you'd want to use, you're good to go. You don't need to use a code website. After that, if you're interested in games, decompile the games you like. If it's made with C#, DNSpy, ILSpy. You don't need a tool ripper. Just peek at the assembly C# DLL. There's usually a decompiler tool for like a game engine that you're interested in. Interested in web dev. Your browser has a console. You're basically looking at the source code. What's a better examples to learn off of? You're gonna tell me with a straight face you're reading documentation or watching segmented course videos that are like, just beat your head at the compiler. Fumble at learning the concepts till things start to click and make sense. It's a little off topic. It's not a great look for QA in general. Personally, from the outside looking in, it's a made up field to impress the gullible and increase expectations from people that have never did the work or care to know about it. GameMaker interview. Pirate Software basically had a little interview for their official GameMaker blog, basically talking about GameMaker and generalized game dev topics. Nothing too crazy or insightful. I added the person that wrote the blog and the interview about it on Twitter. I don't think I'm gonna get an answer, bros. Anyways, not much to talk about. Truthfully, I hope Thor got paid to do this because, like, if he did it for free, bro, I'm just gonna say, she's very good at sniffing out opportunities and jumping at it with minimal risk and maximized career gains. Standing ovation. Obviously, she didn't know or care if Heartbound was in development for 9 to 10 years that might not ever finish. No, the Blizzard and InfoSec claims was way too juicy of a hook to ignore. Is Pirate Software an industry plant? I don't know who actually thought about it, but like, no idea who benefits from it. World of Warcraft, a massively popular game made by a popular company. Blizzard, from the breast milk scandal all the way to the tail end of 2023, had nothing but bad news coming out of it. So it's natural that a Blizzard dev with 20 years of game dev experience would get a huge boost in viewership and subscriptions. He isn't an industry plant. It's just highlighting how much of a fuck up Blizzard was doing at the time. I don't know how to close this video, but I don't like Pirate Software. Learn to program.